Hey everybody, welcome back to another Sorted Builds video. If you didn't notice in the thumbnail, we're working on the hell hole today. And I'm going to explain to you because some of you might not know what the hell hole is, but on a Porsche 914, the battery is mounted in the back here in the engine bay. And this area right here is called the hell hole. And it's because the acid from the battery leaks down and it just rusts everything out. And you can see down here, I mean, it's rusted. I could put my hand through there. It's rusted all the way through. So all the structural integrity of this area is gone. These are the replacement parts. This is the inside. That one's the outer. And I'm going to have to take this motor mount, or sorry, the suspension mount. You can see I've already drilled all the spot welds of that, but I have to remove the rest of it. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut somewhere in the middle here because this is pretty good, strong metal, and the deterioration ends here. And then we're going to swap those in, weld it all up. And this one was so bad that it just rusted out. This is called the longitudinal, rusted the whole longitudinal out. And so these are the two replacement parts for there. But I've been sitting here staring at it quite a bit, contemplating how am I going to keep this all together without it moving around once I cut these pieces out. Although they're rusted pretty bad, there's still a little bit of strength in there. So you'll remember I put this piece of angle iron here, so that's going to keep us steady there. And then later on in the video, I did some things the past couple days. I'll show you where I set the measurements in the door gaps, and then also the targa top measurement from the windshield to the roll bar area. So that's all dialed into manufacturer specifications. And then I added these in to give me some more strength, and that's a turnbuckle welded to. This is just a piece of electrical conduit. And so I got a magnet up here holding my tape, and then the measurement on these is a 1228 millimeters. And so you can see right there, we're set right to 1228, maybe 1229, but that gives me a base. And there's two of these bars. There's one here and there's one here. The measurement is the same across. And then those are tied into the inside of the sheet metal there. So they shouldn't be in the way of me removing these panels. And so I think I'm going to go after this one first, and then I'm going to work on that stuff in the back there. So we'll see if we can get these two done and then work our way towards the back. And then after we're done with those, of course, we're going to have to repair the sheet metal in here that ties the back of the seat area to the floor pan. So we'll be redoing all of that. So yeah, lots of sheet metal work to do, and I think I have a plan now. I'm still a little bit nervous. It could all go wrong. The car could pull and move, and then I'm going to have to figure out how to straighten it out. But we got a plan, so let's get after it. All right, so I got my measurements out of the repair manual, section 8 body. And instead of trying to pull measurements with a tape measure, I made a couple rods. And what I want to check is there's a measurement. I believe it's measurement H. It goes from this point right here to the bottom bolt hole right there. And so it's just easier to cut this to the exact measurement. This is a 1039 millimeters. Hold it up against there and check it against that bolt hole. And it's actually, looks like it's about a little less than a quarter off. Right through there, you can see that gap. So that might need to be pulled together. But then also this measurement is measurement F. And this one is 638 millimeters. And so it goes from here to that point there. And we're pretty good there. It's a little bit open, but it's really not bad. So I think I got to pull this section of the car together a little bit. And then I'm going to go over there on the other side. And check this side. This side, of course, is the side that the hell hole's on and all the rust is on. So we can see there. And here I'll show you. It's almost a 1/4 inch. That bar should fit right in there like that. And then you can see it's just not fitting in there. So I got to open that up a little bit. But then on the bottom here, this measurement is just about dead on perfect. It's a little bit open, but it's not bad. So these are going to be my references, and I'm going to take, I have some more of this 1/2 inch galvanized tubing, and my turnbuckles should be here today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the tube in half, weld the turnbuckle to the middle of it, and then I'll use, put some slots in here, and I'll use them as jacking pipes I can either pull together or push apart the sheet metal. And so I'll have to cut these welds off. I'll get it right where I want it, and then I'll weld it back in place how it is. So as soon as I get those turnbuckles, I'll weld them in and show you what I do there. All right, I cut that weld off, and I brought this, let me back up here. I brought this roof section together. I got my measuring pipe, piece of tubing in there. It's sitting right where the 2 measurement points are. And I kind of had to spread it apart to fit the tube in there. So now that it's right where it needs to be, I'm going to weld that bar back on, and then that's going to set the roof on this side, and then I'll go over to the other side and adjust it. All right, so I'm building this pull bar just out of what I had. This is some conduit, galvanized, and I was going to weld it to the ends by cutting off the end here, but I decided just to pinch the tube down and drill a hole and put it in there. So I'm going to finish building this one out, and then I'm going to set the car flat and see if we can push the car around and get it to fall within spec of the measurements that I got from the shop repair manual. So, all right, here's what we got. You can see I cut a little notch in the tubing to sit in the pinch weld, and then I ended up, I had to weld these on because they were just moving around too much. And then I've got that same deal, got it notched out in the pinch weld. Give you a look back here so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to push that window frame, the windshield frame forward, and so now I'm going to cut the weld off up here, and then we're going to see if we can push that window frame forward enough to go ahead and get that measurement to the right measurement. All right, got that side done. Here's what our bar looks like. So we got it in on that side, and then you come over here to the other side, and it just barely fits right in there. And so that's that 638 millimeter. So that's the driver's side. We had already done the driver's side, and now that I've made the adjustment on the passenger side, which was about 1/4 of an inch off. Sorry, you can see that's right on. And then you can also see where the old weld was there and where I cut and re-welded. So quite a bit of movement out of that. I think it also helped with the door here. And even though the door is still sagging a little bit, it's nowhere near as bad. So those measurements on the passenger side are pretty much dialed in, but the one measurement that's giving me some trouble here is, I'll set that there and I'll show you. Get out on zoom there. So this measurement here, it's off a little bit. It's about, I'd say 3/16 out. But what I notice is down here on this seam right here, which I don't know if this is true, but when I compare it to the other side, you can see that gap in there, and that's about the amount of gap that needs to be taken up. And on the other side, the passenger side, there's no gap. So I think this car just came from the factory with a larger door gap on the driver's side, which isn't a crazy thought, but it's the door gap is here is really good. The problem I'm having is I'm not the biggest fan of the door gap where it meets the fender. It's a little bit bigger. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just a tiny bit bigger. So I feel a lot better about the car being squared up now. So I think I'm going to try to put some sort of, I got to put more support in to get this thing nice and strong before I cut all that longitudinal out of the hell hole, and then this chassis rail here. So a little bit more bracing I got to do, and then I'm going to get to cutting. But today we're going to work on chassis reinforcement. So I got a couple kits here. One of them is from Patrick. I believe it's Patrick. Let's look at the page here. Patrick Motorsports. And so we have a rail chassis stiffening kit. And so it consists of these parts here. Just the ones that are 16 gauge sheet metal. And they have holes drilled in them for plug welds. I'm just going to do the driver's side today. So I'll show you what I have here so far. Let me get you set up right where you can see right there. So this kit fits in here. For instance, this piece will go right in here. Lines up with the body contours and then mates up. In here you can see there's a seam right in this area here where that mates up. And then this piece needs to be press braked, and it goes in right next to it right there. So I got to press brake that so that it can, not press brake, but just sheet metal brake that so that it can fit in there correctly. And I got to finish braking this piece here. I put one small brake in it, but it needs more contour so that'll fit in there. And then I think I'll use my MIG welder to plug in, or to plug weld all these. And then I think what I'm going to do is use the TIG welder around the edge to keep the heat out of it, and just seam weld that part all the way in there. So those are those two parts. This kit consists of 4 pieces per side. And so then the next piece we have goes right here by the suspension bracket leg. And so this piece goes right here, and it needs to be braked as well to fit that contour. And then I believe this last piece, this piece is saying that it's for 914.6s only. So I'm imagining that this is some sort of a motor mount stiffener. This piece here. I got to look at it a little closer. And then we have another kit that comes from 914 Limited. And this is a little bit heavier steel. And this reinforces the rail. So this is like, I think it's 100 thou thickness. So for instance, this piece goes into the chassis here. And then the lower control or the rear trailing arm mount holes will line up. And then it gets welded to this piece right here, which goes on first. And I still have to finish trimming. You can see I started trimming that bracket out. It looks sort of like this one. There's two of those, one there and one there. I like to cut them out and then I'll go ahead and get the spot welds out of the way. Then we'll be able to fit this piece up inside there. Somehow, some way. Once everything's out of the way, we'll know better. And that's going to give us lots of strength in this chassis rail. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cleaning up these welds, or removing those brackets, drilling out those spot welds, grinding out the spot welds, whatever I end up doing. And then we're going to work on fitting it. And I'm just going to do this left side today. Put some strength in here and see how this kit works. So let's get into it. Yeah, this should only take me a couple of minutes to grind out these welds, and then we'll get into some fitting here. All right, got that stuff out of the way, but I have to work on these drains here. I have to cut and flatten this out because when you lay in this new piece of steel, it needs to be able to sit in there flush. And you can see right now that those are creating a gap in there. And so I have to eliminate those. So I'm going to do that right now, and then we'll see how this fits. All right, kind of got that. Just have one clamp on it, somewhat in position. I'm just kind of looking at it, see what it's doing. And I want to see how this is going to fit under here. Yeah, I like that right there. So then we've got kind of a corner protruding there, so I'm going to grind that out. Now we're flush there, looks good. I have to put a clamp on there. Got this messy clamp here I'll use. All right, so that's going to go like that. And then I'm going to just slide this over so that touches. Kind of don't like how this bottom corner is. I'd like that to be up flush more. Gonna take a little, gotta do a little grinding on this piece. I don't really like the fit up. Yeah, see, I'd like to weld that backside in there if I could. Might have to just drill a couple holes and see if I'm able to plug weld that. This piece will still slide in behind there like that. So I really just have to work on putting a bend on this. So let's do that. So I do have some self-etching weld-through primer that I'm going to use later on this. But right now I think I'm going to mark off that piece and put some bends in it. So I got a couple lines there. Transfer them over to this side because we're going to be bending the opposite way. Yeah, we probably could just go to the corners that are on there, but I think I'm going to go right there's where I got it marked. I think I like it. This is just a cheap Harbor Freight brake, or maybe it's Amazon. I don't. One of the two. Just know it's cheap. But if it does these little tasks that I need it to do, it's plenty fine for what we're doing. So this is also gonna, this piece right here will also take place of the shim that's typically here on that trailing arm. So it's close. I just don't like the way that the holes are lining up. Probably could open up the diameter of these holes just to make sure it hits better. So I'm probably going to do that because when you line up two, the third one just isn't there. All right, so I got these three pieces bent up and fit kind of how I like. So I'm going to clean them off with a little acetone. I'm going to spray some weld-through primer on them. That way I can weld them in. At least get them tacked in place where they go and see how they fit. All right, we'll let that dry, and then I think I'll start tacking this stuff in. All right, started to get these kind of tacked in here. Got that one in there. And then I'll go around, I'll use my clamps and squeeze that down in there so it gets in there nice and tight. And then this one's sitting here. I might need to adjust it a little bit actually. And then that one will be ready to weld in also. So I'm gonna get to welding and we'll see how this turns out. All right, we're at a good stopping point. I just laid that large bead across there. Got all our plug welds done, another weld there on this piece, but it's time to go eat some dinner. Then maybe tomorrow I'll get after that piece. So it's coming along pretty good. I did find out where this other piece goes. This one here. It looks like it routes in there. It's going to need some bending. So that's going to be kind of complicated, but I also got that brace in my way. And so these two pieces will probably have to wait until after the hell hole's repaired. Okay, I'm back. So I'm going to pick up where I left off yesterday. And like I said, I'm going to weld this plate in right here. So let's get to it. All right, so we're all done with that. Got it fully welded out. Even in here. Welder worked pretty good, so turned out good, and I think it's going to make the chassis a lot stronger. out. So this piece I was really dreading, but wasn't too bad. So now that I have it out, I can see I have to make a repair here. And then there's one area. No, I think it's pretty good actually. Nothing extra needed there. So I just have to probably get that piece out. And then I might just weld that piece in and then weld the new replacement piece in on top of it after I repair all of this. So making progress. Still got to figure out exactly what I'm going to do back here, but that was a big step towards the right direction to get in this hellhole to look like a piece of heaven. All right, back to it. All right, another day back here out on the Porsche, and then we're going to get after removing the rest of this outer longitudinal, and then I'll probably work on doing some metal repair here because this is all rusted out and this piece of metal needs to extend past the pinch weld here. So we're going to go ahead and get going on that. So let's do it. All right, we got this old piece out here, and then I cut this section out of there because that's all rusted out. Gonna have to make a new piece for that, so I'll have to I'll get some sheet metal bent up and fit that in there. You can see that thing was pretty rusty, so out with the old and in with the new. Here's the new piece, kind of test fit in there. I'm nowhere near close to welding it in yet. I have lots of cleaning to do. In back behind here, there's some rust and a couple pinholes that I need to make a patch for. And then, you know, I'll make this patch also, and it needs to butt there, and it connects in between the pinch welds. You can't really see, but up in there, there's 3 sheets of metal. So you have your inner outer longitudinal, and then that piece of sheet metal goes down in the pinch weld. Lots to do still here, but I think I'm going to go get some lunch, and then I'm going to get back at it. All right, back from lunch. So here we are, the part that I've been dreading the most. I'm going to get after it. I'm going to get this mount off and figure my cut's going to be somewhere in here. We'll cut there and then do our weld there. But I got to get that mount out of the way. That way I can do the lower piece also, or the outer piece. So, going to get to doing lots of grinding, get this thing ready to go. All right, well, this is about all I'm going to get done in this video, but it's huge progress. I have both the inner and outer longitudinal are sitting in place. This is just kind of mock-up. This isn't final. I cut all the rust out in this area that was bad, and I devised a plan. It took me a little while. I sat here, I looked at it, I stared at it, and this is the best thing I could come up with. So I'll show you what I got going here. I'll take this clamp off. So that's the other part of this suspension there. And then, of course, I got to finish fitting this up. But that's going to be a piece of this turn here. And then what I found was that most of the sheet metal in here wasn't that bad. So you could see up in there, it's got a little bit of surface rust, but it's not too bad. So I'll be able to weld that up together. And then I had to grind everything out that welded to the suspension mount. And then I still have to make a couple cuts up in here because this is kind of it's got some rust in it, and the new piece, which is over here, so you can see what that's going to look like. That'll get cut and placed in there, and then you see I have about 4 inches that I can go up from that seam and remove and replace all that old rust. So all these parts that I've been using to replace the sheet metal, they're from SMC, which is Sierra Madre Collection. They're actually turned out to be pretty high quality parts. The thickness of the metal is really good. The forming of the metal is in the factory place. So they're high quality parts, and I'm pretty excited to use them. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. If you stuck around to this point, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you have any suggestions, leave a comment below. And hopefully by next week's video, all of this stuff will be welded in, and I'll be able to show you that. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.